Hello and welcome back to Eye on Marvel. My name is Peter Levi, and today I'm going to look at a major leak about the Eternals. Before we get into that, please like and subscribe and hit the bell notification for the video. I know this is something you hear all the time and it can feel a little annoying, but it does indeed help and will keep the channel growing. Only been going on for about a month now. But I certainly appreciate the people already here, and we look forward to welcoming more. But on to the matter at hand, the Eternals. So for those who've been paying attention, this is a film that has been in the can, complete, for a very long time. The original release date was this past November, subsequently shifted to February, and then again to the upcoming November. So the film itself has been done for a long time, and despite that, we've heard very little about it. There was a screening of some sort shown at, I believe it was a Disney event, not this Christmas time, but the Christmas before. And there were reports on that, but it was unfinished footage, very choppy stuff, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Not much that could be made from it in the reports. And other than that, and some official art, we've had no substantive news at all. And that all changed today with a major leak that came out on Reddit. Before I jump into that, and I should let you know, major spoilers ahead, as this leak does seem to be authentic. There is a little bit of background I want to go over. I think it's particularly important in the case of this film, because a lot of this stuff has received minimal to no coverage, at least that I can find. So just basically, this project itself is a very odd one, a big risk for the MCU. And I'm sure for a lot of fans, it's hard to associate the term risk in Marvel since everything seems to work. But the Eternals is a very obscure property, very obscure. What I often see people throw around are comparisons to Guardians of the Galaxy. But if you go back and look at the relative comic popularity of the two properties, Guardians is actually much more popular than the Eternals. The Eternals had, I think it's up to 5, but it might just be 4 limited series and nothing else. And the most popular character from the IP, Cersei, has appeared in comparative terms very little since she first appeared in the late 70s. So this is deep in the archives. We know that for years it was going to be an ABC, so therefore Marvel Entertainment, therefore Jeff Loeb project, and that Kevin Feige swooped in and took it back. We don't know if it was in 2018 or late 2017, but somewhere in there. And then the fact that it was coming is the scoop that made a particular person famous who's no longer in the biz. And it was one of those things where people are asking, what is this for? What is this meant to bring to Marvel that isn't there already? With Guardians, it helped open up the cosmic door, space adventure. But here the Eternals is more about the past and setting up things like the Celestials, anticipating things like Galactus, that sort of thing. And then one of the interesting decisions they did was to include Dane Whitman, better known as Black Knight, in the film, even though he's not really associated with that IP at all. Black Knight is typically an Avenger. And I think part of the reason they did that was to help boost the signal for a group of characters most people had never heard of and had very limited interest in. So that's sort of the background of where this comes from. As for the filming itself, about 8 or 9 weeks ago, sometime in early February, we started to get reports that the film was a hit, considered one of the best MCU entries ever. Just a great film in and of itself. And this was something that did the rounds in the various fan sites. But it was a puzzler. Where could this come from? No one had seen the film. There wasn't a trailer. What had created this buzz? So I did some detective work and found out that a tweet by a guy named Eric Weber, who does a bunch of things. He's not particularly associated with Marvel, but he had put out this tweet. He said that a source of his had told him how great it was. And that's where all this came from. And it is good news in a way, but it's also the kind of thing that you can dismiss as fluff, because a lot of films will have this sort of thing. You can think back to Batman v Superman with WB giving it a standing ovation. This is just a part of the marketing. It's better than hearing the opposite, of course, but Weber's he's not someone that you would look to for this kind of information. So while I would take it as a mild positive indicator, I don't think it means a whole lot. So as we were hearing Eternals, the next Citizen Kane of Marvel, shortly after that came a very interesting story that came and went in a couple hours, and nobody's talking about it, other than me. Geeks Worldwide, GWW, which is a fan site, their editor, KC Walsh, tweeted out that he had heard from a source that he considered to be a good source, that actress Gemma Chan, who plays Cersei, had been a problem on set, and that this was such a big deal that Marvel had decided to move away from the character, de-emphasize her. Now, this is a pretty big deal. On the one hand, you might want to dismiss it. This kind of stuff happens all the time where people report such and such an actor is a problem, and it's nonsense. The reason why I think there might be some credibility here is Walsh is not the kind of person to make this stuff up. While Walsh's behavior on social media can be a little extreme, in terms of being a Marvel fan, he is very hardcore. He's someone who's enthused about the IP. So it's not something I think he would ever make up. Now, that doesn't mean his source is correct. This could be completely false, but it's a pretty major coup. However, he's deleted that tweet after just a couple of hours. And while that might signal that he doesn't believe it or he realized he made a mistake, all the other things associated with it, he's left up. So the theory I put out at the time, and I still believe, is that other people in the Marvel sphere told him to shut the hell up, and that there was no benefit to him saying something that's negative that could affect him later down the line for access. And so that went away. No one has covered it or mentioned it since. And I feel like the leak I'm about to go into is something you're also going to see absolutely nowhere. And when I say nowhere, I mean the usual suspects, places like CBR, from the major scoopers, wherever you normally go to get your Marvel news. I don't think you're going to see this any more than you would see that story about Gemma Chan. So putting that aside, what did we get hold of today? What's so exciting about this? It's a post on Reddit. A lot of things on Reddit are just wastes of time. It's not as bad as 4chan, but why is this something to take into account and consider credible? Well, so number one, the person who posted it up provided proof that the Reddit mods at least believed. Okay, that's one barrier. It's not impossible to trick Reddit mods. So why do I give it some credit? Well, pardon me, the very same poster had put out information about WandaVision while the show was on that was also correct. So at least in my experience, this person is credible. And what are they claiming? Well, they are claiming that they were at a screener. They were at a test screening of the film, and afterwards they took notes. And what they provided on Reddit, it's still there. It was deleted briefly, but brought back. But what they provided was their notes of having sat through the film. Now, for some people, this is a horrible thing because they don't want to know, they don't want it spoiled. I completely understand that. For me personally, as someone whose investment in this film is close to zero, I was really curious what was being done. How are you going to take something so weird and so obscure and make it resonate to your average fan, make it relevant to the structure of the MCU when you know that originally there was no plan to include these characters or their exploits in the way that they're being included here. So what do we get? And I also want to, of course, compare it to other supposed leaks and scoops and whatnot, of which there haven't been a lot. Most of it's from 4chan. So I am going to read through this as quickly and efficiently as I can, and then we'll just sort of sum up the most interesting things at the end. It's not that long. This is just point four notes. So the guy opens up. There was a lot of jumping around in time to give context to various plot points. I don't recall all of the linear order, so we'll just include the info as part of the synopsis. That certainly tracks with how you would write down what you remember from a film afterwards. The opening title card explains that the Deviants and Eternals, or explains about them. The Deviants were created by the Celestials to hunt predators that prey on intelligent life on newly evolving worlds, but then they started to hunt intelligent life as well. So the Celestials created the Eternals to kill the Deviants. This is a little different from how things are in the comics, but I like that. I think that's an interesting approach. It makes some sense. The film opens 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. That's something that had come out from set photos, so we kind of knew that was coming, if not the exact time frame. A man is fishing on some rocks with his son, ? And is attacked by a deviant from the ocean. The Eternals show up and a short battle commences, after which the Eternals line up in a triangular hero pose, and this rolls into the Marvel logo. Jumps to present day. Cersei and Dane Whitman, that's Kit Harington's character, are teachers in the UK and dating, so they're already in a relationship. By the way, I think for Marvel, already in a relationship has worked better than their romances, just in my opinion. During a class lesson, a large earthquake strikes, and Cersei saves a child from a falling object by turning it to sand. Later, while out on a date, a deviant attacks Cersei, Sprite, and Dane. During the battle, Ikaris shows up, and they fight it off, the deviant, after noting that they thought all the deviants were destroyed, and unlike the others, the deviant was able to heal its wounds. The group decides to visit Ajak, as she was the leader of the group. After arriving at the Midwest ranch where she is now living, they discover her dead body. A small golden device leaves Ajak's body and enters Cersei. This is how she communicated with the Celestials. They then decide to round up the rest of the Eternals to deal with the Deviants. Thena and Gilgamesh are in Australia, I think, due to an issue with her memory causing her to randomly attack the other Eternals. Gilgamesh is obviously in love with Thena, but it is not played as a romantic relationship. Phastos and his husband live with their child, and he decides to help due to the fact that he has fully embraced the human race and wants to protect his family. Makkari has been living in the Eternal ship all this time, in brackets, I guess, since there's a bunch of food containers and mess strewn about. Kingo is a Bollywood actor. This is something else that had leaked from set photos, incidentally. There is a short dance routine that introduces this and comes with the group along with his valet, don't recall the name, who tries to document everything on video. Droog is living in some rainforest controlling a small village of people after losing faith in humanity and wanting to control them to stop war, famine, etc. Gilgamesh is killed fighting the deviants in the forest. Cersei learns that the Celestials created both races and that the Eternals are basically just very advanced robots. They seed young planets with a celestial egg that takes eons to mature. The evolving intelligent life on these planets feeds the Celestials' growth, so the Eternals are sent to protect the evolving life forms and kill the Deviants. After the emergence, the Eternals are rebooted and sent to another world. This is the cause of Thena's memories issue, as she knows that the planet is doomed. The cycle has gone on for millions of years. Earth was seeded, and Tiamat, who is a Celestial, is about to emerge. This was the cause of the earthquake earlier. Once awakened, the entire planet and all life will be destroyed. They debate on what to do, and some decide to try and find a way to stop the emergence. Ikaris disagrees. Sprite and Kingo are on his side, but Kingo agrees to help. Phastos designs a device the Unimind, that will allow Droog to channel all the Eternals' energies in the hope of controlling Tiamat and putting him back to sleep. Cersei learns that Ikaris knew about the Celestials' actual plans, and this is why he left the group hundreds of years ago. He killed Ajak because she had decided to help stop the emergence and save Earth. The group go to where Tiamat is and attempt to use the device. Ikaris and Sprite try to stop them. Cersei then uses the device to amplify her power and turn Tiamat into marble, just as his hand and part of his head is emerging from the Indian Ocean. Ikaris flies off into space towards the sun. Unclear if he just left or flew into the sun and killed himself. Then Cersei makes Sprite a real human with what remains of her power. A few days later, there's a question mark next to that, Athena, Makkari, and Droog leave in the ship to seek out other Eternals and try to stop the cycle of destruction. Cersei, Kingo, and Phastos stay on Earth, but are pulled into space by Arishem, who's a Celestial, and vanish. The two end credit stingers. 1. Dane is looking at an old box and pulls out a sword that is wrapped up. Just as he is about to touch it, an off-screen voice stops him. 2. On the Eternal ship, Pip the Troll appears and introduces Star Fox. And that is the end of the leak. There's a lot to digest there. One of the interesting things is that this does not conform too much to what we expected, at least from what people have speculated and supposed scoops. Broadly speaking, of course, the storyline is the same. The Eternals have to confront the Celestials for some reason. But there's plenty of things here that are not expected. So one of the things I had wondered is what Marvel was going to do with so many characters. If you go through their pattern of introductions, the sweet spot for new characters in terms of screen time for films is about 5. And here we have, I think it's 9. It's a ridiculous number of characters. You just don't have the screen time for all that. So what this reveals, or at least assuming it's true, is one of the ways around it is they quickly get rid of characters. So we have Ajak and Gilgamesh gone in a blink. It reminded me of Slipknot and Suicide Squad. Just they're 1 minute, gone the next. You know, you're thinking maybe 5 minutes of screen time and they're gone. That really helps cut things down. Makkari also, at least from the description, seems like a pretty ephemeral character. So even if she's present on screen quite a bit, doesn't seem to have much to do. So again, you're shrinking down the focus. Really unexpectedly, no Dane Whitman as Black Knight. That's definitely a shocker. It's almost hard to believe because there were reports of Kit in a incomplete Black Knight costume. But if this is correct, apparently that's just not going to happen. There's a number of ways to explain that if you want. You can either say it's poking a hole in this whole story and that this is false on some level, or you could say that maybe they tried the outfit, didn't like it, and decided to leave his emergence as Black Knight for something else. We simply don't know at this point. Ikaris as a villain is a huge shocker. Sprite is not. Sprite is sort of expected to be a bad person. But yeah, Ikaris as a villain, or at least anti-hero, is quite a surprise. One thing I don't like about this is the Celestials' motivation. It is very, very similar to Ego's in Guardians 2. And I don't like that because it's really, really simple. And I always thought what was interesting about the Celestials was judging. The whole judgment angle was interesting, where you have these weird aliens who just decide for their own reasons whether life is worthy or not. That's a lot more interesting than we're growing an egg and then you all die. That's really simplistic. So I kind of hope that's not true, but that is how it's presented here. What's curious is the splitting of the characters at the end of the film. You have the Eternals split into 2 groups, Athena, Makkari, and Droog in one, and Cersei, Kingo, and Phastos in the other. And it's not clear what this is meant to achieve. The first group gets to meet Star Fox, so that implies they're more important, but it's difficult to know for sure. Certainly, broadly speaking, the more important actors, as in the bigger names, are in that first group. So it would suggest maybe that they're the more important trio. But if that's the case, that means that there may be some truth to Walsh's idea that they want to move away from Cersei because she's in the second group. The other weird thing about that split is it means the relationship that she has with Dane Whitman is at least physically separated at the end of the film. So it sort of makes you wonder, where is that going, or is it going anywhere? Is it just for this film? And then finally, what does it mean for Black Knight? Where does he go from here? If all the Eternals are gone, what does that mean for his future? I mean, he obviously has one. Marvel is specifically investing into Kit Harington. So he has a future. But it makes me wonder, what's the leapfrog moment for him here? Is this just a convenient place to introduce him so that when he shows up in the next, IP or his own potentially, you don't have to explain his origin. It's already happened here. I'm not sure. So we get a lot from this leak, but it leaves a ton of questions open. And I'll just reiterate, while I do think this post is credible, that does not mean I think it's 100% correct, that everything in it is accurate. There remains a chance that this is false, either partially or fully. Post-credit scenes can be faked. It's been done before. There may have been things left out. The cut of the film that was seen may be changed. One thing we know from Taika Waititi is Marvel is very big on testing, and they will change things if they don't work. We also have no idea when this person saw this screener. This might not have been recent. This might have been months and months ago. We simply don't know. What I would say this does is it gives us a strong idea of what the skeleton of the film is like, what the characters are going to be like, what the plot is like. And if this is accurate, it is an interesting choice. It does make the Eternals seem like a one and done film, which is what I would have guessed to begin with. But it's also not entirely clear to me what it's meant to set up. I don't think you can do the celestial egg thing ever again. I think doing an egg thing twice is too much already. And then what are you going to do with the Eternals? I'm thinking maybe they're for some sort of cosmic adventures later, but to what end or what purpose, I'm not sure, because they've had so little resonance in Marvel. I don't know where you go with them, but that's speculation for another day. At any rate, I've certainly talked more than enough about that for now. Hopefully you found this informative. I find it fascinating. I'm looking forward to the first preview of the Eternals that we get. And I'm just dying to see, A, if anyone covers this. My expectation is no. And two, how much of this winds up being legit. I suspect previews will give us an idea whenever we wind up getting one, but that's probably months away. That being said, as I said, thank you for watching. We will catch you next time, and have a good one.